My name is Margaret Hill, but everyone in town calls me Grandma Maggie. I'm 78 years old now, and I've been married to my husband, George, for 55 years. People often ask me, Grandma Maggie, what's the secret to your long relationship? Every time they ask, I smile, sip my tea, and think back to the quiet mornings, the small arguments, the laughter over burnt pancakes, and the gentle hands that still hold mine even when we walk slower than before. Today, I think I'll finally tell the story, not just the secret, but the journey that made it worth keeping. I met George when I was 20. I worked as a waitress at a small diner in our town. The place was always filled with the smell of coffee and buttered toast. George used to come every morning before going to the factory. He always ordered the same things: scrambled eggs, bacon, and black coffee. At first, he hardly talked, just a quiet man with tired eyes and a polite smile. One morning, when I spilled coffee on the counter, he helped me clean it instead of complaining. That small act of kindness made me notice him differently. Weeks later, he started leaving small notes on napkins after paying his bill. Your smile makes my day brighter. Hope your shift isn't too long today. Once, he drew a small flower beside his message. I kept every note in my apron pocket. After a few months, he finally asked me out. It wasn't a fancy dinner. We just went for a walk by the lake after work. The air smelled of pine trees and summer rain. He told me he didn't have much money but promised he would always try to make me happy. I believed him. That was the beginning of us. We married the following spring, under a tree behind my parents' house. It was a small wedding, just family, a homemade cake, and a borrowed white dress. George looked nervous but happy, his hands shaking as he slid the ring on my finger. We didn't have much. Our first home was a tiny one-bedroom cottage with a squeaky door and a roof that leaked during heavy rain. But to me, it was heaven. We had each other. I worked part-time at the diner, and George continued at the factory. Every evening, I waited for him by the window, and when I saw his bicycle coming up the road, I'd run to the door. We'd eat dinner together, talk about our day, and laugh about silly things. Sometimes, when we were too tired, we just sat quietly holding hands. I learned that love isn't always about big words or grand gestures. Sometimes, love is silence that feels safe. Every marriage has its storm. Ours came 5 years later, when George lost his job. The factory closed down suddenly, and he came home one afternoon with his lunchbox still full. I could see the sadness in his eyes. We had bills to pay and little savings. For weeks, George looked for work, but nothing came. He began to feel like he wasn't enough. He stopped laughing. He sat by the window all day, staring outside. One evening, I found him in the kitchen, holding one of my aprons. "I can't give you the life you deserve," he said quietly. I took his hands and said, "The life I deserve is right here with you." I found another part-time job at the bakery nearby, and we managed. It was hard, but I never once blamed him. I knew he was trying. Eventually, he got a new job repairing cars. We celebrated with homemade soup and a small bottle of wine. That night, he held me close and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." That was one of the first lessons in our marriage. Never let pride be louder than love. Don't think we never argued. We did, of course, about small things, like when he forgot our anniversary, or when I complained he snored too loud. Once I got angry, because he tracked mud into the house after fixing the car. We yelled a bit, slammed some doors, then both went quiet. But we always made up before bedtime. We had a rule: never sleep angry. Even if we didn't want to talk, we'd at least touch hands before sleeping. Sometimes that simple touch was all we needed to remind ourselves we were on the same side. One night, after another silly fight, I asked him, "Why do you still love me even when I'm stubborn?" He smiled and said, "Because I married your heart, not your mood." I laughed, but deep down I knew he meant it. That became another secret: forgive fast, and remember the good more than the bad. Time passed. We had 2 children, a boy named Henry and a girl named Lily. Our home became noisier, happier, and sometimes more stressful. Money was always tight, and sleepless nights with crying babies made us both cranky. But every time we looked at those tiny faces, we found new strength. We grew older, but our love grew gentler. George would fix toys for the children, and I would bake cookies for their school events. On weekends, we went to the park with sandwiches and lemonade. Those were the golden years. Then life tested us again. George's mother got sick. We spent months helping her, and it was exhausting. But through it all, George remained patient, caring, and loving. Watching him care for his mother taught me something beautiful: kindness keeps love alive. Even when we were tired, we still tried to make each other smile. I remember once, after a long day, George brought me wildflowers from the side of the road. "They're not from a shop," he said shyly. I laughed and kissed him on the cheek. "They're perfect." As the years went by, our children grew up and moved out. The house became quiet again. I thought I'd feel lonely, but surprisingly, it felt peaceful, like we had come full circle. Just George and me again, like in the beginning. We started new routines. Morning walks in the park. Tea on the porch. Watching the sunset without rushing anywhere. We talked about old memories and laughed about silly things we did in our youth. Sometimes, we didn't even need to speak. I could read his thoughts from the way he looked at me. Love, after many years, becomes something deeper than words. But life isn't all soft moments. George had a heart problem when he turned 70. The day the doctor told us, my heart sank. He had surgery, and for a while, I thought I might lose him. I remember sitting beside his hospital bed, holding his cold hand. I whispered, "Don't you dare leave me yet. George Hill. We still have sunsets to watch." He smiled weakly and said, "Wouldn't dream of it." He recovered slowly. When we finally returned home, everything felt more precious: the way the morning light touched his face, the way he called me Maggie, my girl, even when I was already a grandmother. Now, after all these years, when young couples ask me how we stayed together so long, I tell them this: love isn't magic. It's work, gentle, patient, daily work. It's remembering to hold hands even when you're angry. It's saying sorry first, even if you think you're right. It's laughing at the same old jokes. It's sitting in silence without feeling lonely. It's growing together, not apart. People change, seasons change, but love, true love, grows like a tree. It needs care, sunshine, and sometimes a bit of rain. Our secret is simple. We never stopped choosing each other. Every day, through the easy and the hard, we chose to stay. Not because we were perfect, but because we were real. Last week, we celebrated our 55th wedding anniversary. Our children and grandchildren came home with flowers and cake. The house was filled with laughter again. Someone asked us to share advice for a long marriage. George took my hand, looked at everyone, and said, "Marry your best friend. Then never stop being their friend." I looked at him and felt tears in my eyes. Even after all these years, that man could still make my heart flutter. He winked at me like he used to when we were young. Later that evening, after everyone left, we sat outside on the porch. The sky was painted orange and pink, and the air was soft. George reached over and brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Do you ever regret anything, Maggie?" he asked. I thought for a moment, smiling. "Maybe that I didn't meet you sooner." He chuckled. 55 years isn't soon enough?" I leaned my head on his shoulder. "It's never enough when you love someone." We sat there quietly as the sun went down, holding hands like we always did. The years had changed us, our faces lined, our steps slower, our voices softer, but our hearts, they were still the same. Now that I'm older, I've learned that love isn't about never fighting or always agreeing. It's about growing roots deep enough that when the storms come, you don't break, you bend and hold on. There were times we almost gave up, times we hurt each other without meaning to, times when life was heavy, but we never let go. We always remembered why we started, two young people who simply wanted to share their lives. I've seen couples today give up easily. They expect love to always feel exciting, like in movies. But real love isn't fireworks every day. It's more like a steady flame, small, warm, and bright enough to guide you through the dark. If I could tell every young couple one thing, it would be this: love isn't found. It's built, piece by piece, moment by moment. Tonight, as I write this, George is asleep in his chair beside the window. His glasses rest on his nose, and the soft sound of his breathing fills the room. I smile watching him, the man who shared my youth, my worries, my laughter, my dreams. I sometimes think of all the mornings we've seen, all the cups of coffee we've shared, all the times we've danced in the kitchen to old songs. I think about how we held each other when life got hard, how we forgave, how we loved not perfectly, but truly. That's the secret, I suppose. To keep loving, even when it's hard. To keep choosing the same person, again and again, every day, even when time steals the strength from your hands. I close my notebook and look at George one more time. I whisper softly, "Thank you for keeping your promise, for always trying to make me happy." He stirs a little and smiles in his sleep, as if he heard me. Outside, the stars begin to fill the sky, and the world feels peaceful. My heart is full, and I know that even when our time here ends, the love we built will never fade. It will stay in the laughter of our children, in the warmth of our home, and in every story I tell. So here it is, the secret of our long love. We didn't wait for love to stay. We worked to keep it alive, every single day. And that, my dear, is what made 55 years feel like a heartbeat.